What's up, MovNatters? Danny Clark here, Performance Director and Master Instructor for MovNat. I want to talk about sitting with you guys today. A really simple, basic position that's sort of overlooked usually when we approach fitness. A lot of functional benefits to sitting and sitting better, but there's also a lot of just practical reasons to sit. So being able to sit on the ground comfortably is a basic foundational MovNat movement. Okay, so we're going to go over 4 different sits. We're going to go over cross sit, bent sit, side bent sit, and long sit. And we're going to work on some basic regressions so that you guys can make these positions comfortable and ultimately impact your practice in a positive way so that the other movements you do become easier over time. Okay, so we're going to start in a simple cross sit position. It's going to be sit number 1. Now the goal here is to get your center of gravity over your base of support. Now when I think about base of support, what that is where I'm holding my weight. So my feet are on the ground, but really my hips are holding the weight of my body. My center of gravity is essentially the tipping point of my body if I was balanced on my side. So it's going to be usually for most people right around the belly button or slightly below that. Okay, so we want to stack those 2 things. So center of gravity, base of support. Now, why do we want to do this? Really it comes down to the functional benefits of learning how to use our hips for movement instead of our spine for everything. And then there's the practical benefits of just being able to move from this position very easily, okay, and maintain it. So if I can maintain this position effortlessly, I'll be able to stay here instead of my back cramping, okay? Likewise, I'll be able to move, transition to other sits. I'll also be able to see a lot easier from here. Go ahead and try that. If you forward flex, a lot of us are in this position because with our center of gravity behind our base of support because our lives keep us here all the time. It's very efficient for me to just hold my body, my spine round if I'm looking down at the ground, looking down at a computer, driving, etc. So the goal is to be able to reverse that, kind of from the more timeless evolutionary perspective, be able to move and see from here. Center of gravity over base of support is going to allow us to do that. Now what happens if this is a lot of effort? Well, the first thing I can do to modify this is just use posts to kind of put me in this position. Use my fingertips, my hands, whatever. I can even hold onto my knees. I can just find that position. You can use a mirror if you need to make sure your center of gravity, again, base of support, a slight arch in your back, shoulders over hips. Okay? What I want to do is not just rely on these posts, though. I want to kind of take the pressure off my hands just enough so my body has to work. Again, you'll feel your hip flexors engage, your lower back engage. Okay? Second thing I could do is put a bolster under me. By elevating my hips, I'm taking the pressure off the job my hips have to do. Okay? I'm lowering the mobility requirement. Okay? That allows me to find this position. This can allow my back to strengthen up a little bit and just get me used to this position. And I gradually want to make this bolster smaller over time. The third thing I could do is use a counterweight. Another MovNat principle, combined center of gravity. When I combine my center of gravity with this object's center of gravity, I essentially shift my center of gravity forward automatically. Okay, so the further I pull this from my body, the more it's going to make it easier for me to find this position nice and upright from here. And again, move from here. And all that stuff. Okay, so that's cross sit position, sit number 1. Sit number 2 is going to be bent sit position. Second sit is just bent sit, which is just another comfortable, relaxed position. From bent sit, I should be able to, again, see, and I should be able to move through different positions very easily, even transition to side bent sit. Okay, but again, a lot of us here are going to be forward flexed. So how do we get our center of gravity over our base of support? First, we can just change the position a little bit. Okay, so I can widen out my stance using the more open outside of my hip socket instead of the more closed off front of my hip socket. So simply by widening my stance, a lot easier to get in a better position. Okay, another thing I could do is use my hands again to pull myself into position, either under my knees or by posting behind me, and then back off just enough so I actually have to work. I don't want to always rely on these posts. I want to feel my body get the stimulation it needs to get stronger hip flexors, a stronger lower back, more open hips. But I'm better off doing that than always just staying here because I never actually open up my hips. Okay, and same thing here. We could bolster or we can use the counter load to help pull us into position. Third sit is side bent sit. So I can make a simple transition to side bent sit here just by rolling over my feet. Okay, there's a lot of variations of this movement, but for our purposes, let's go knee inside the foot. What I want to be able to do here, again, is sit effortlessly. I should be able to sit here for 10 minutes. I should be able to transition to the other side with minimal discomfort. I want you to try 2 things. One is just see if you can touch both hips to the ground. And 2 is see if you can make that transition by rolling over your feet to the other side. Okay, if you can't do either of those two things, let's work on it. Okay, first is hips. Okay, if my hips aren't both on the ground, that means my spine is probably doing the job my hips should be doing, right? I'm sitting here like this, which is gonna be uncomfortable. I'm not gonna improve the efficiency, effortlessness of the position. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use a post, and I'm gonna just feel, just by moving my hips forward and backward, I'm gonna feel my femur articulate inside my hip bone, just like so. Okay, and I'm just gonna find the end range of motion, get a nice long, tall spine, even if I'm slightly angled to the side. I'm just gonna breathe here. Okay, if I could stay here for a minute, I can contract, relax, do little things to help ease that position. I don't wanna force, shouldn't feel any pain, nothing like that. Shouldn't feel pain in the knee, but we wanna just get to the end range of motion and just breathe there, and that over time, that'll open things up. Okay, to roll over to the other side, same thing, I can use posts, keep as upright of a spine as I can as I make this nice smooth transition. And then I can try the other side, trying to find the end range of motion. Take about 5 breaths here, and then roll to the other side. Last sit, number 4, is long sit. Okay, so again, I should be able to hold this fairly effortlessly. I should be able to reach overhead. I should be able to rotate, but a lot of us are gonna be here because of tight hips and hamstrings, making our spine do the job our hips should be. So what I'm gonna do is, all I'm gonna do is center of gravity over base of support, use my hip flexor strength, so it's gonna hold me nice and upright. Okay, I keep my legs fairly locked so that I can find strength in this position. I can even practice reaching overhead to see where I'm at, and I can just feel where my hips are in space. Again, if you can't get to this position outright on your own, you could bolster to make this a little bit, sitting right on the edge here to make this a little bit more accessible. Okay, you could use the counter load. Some of you might need to use all these different things. Doesn't really matter where you're at, just by working on this position, it's gonna help you. Again, the goal of these 4 sits is to be able to have A, variety of movement, and B, comfort in movement, so that you can sit on the ground and it becomes totally effortless. You can move from the ground, you can easily transition to get up, and it's gonna, again, help you with a lot of other movements down the road in your MovNat practice. Thanks for tuning in. I hope these pointers help you. We're always looking for feedback, so shoot us an email and let us know how you're doing with your practice. Thanks for tuning in.